have signed up
Sure.
actor and for Skip Bellon.
Hey.
We'll bring on up. Did you want this thing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So just by a way of quick introduction, I remember the first time that Skip came to read at this open mic, and he did this story called The Daisy that was about a young woman, and when he was kind of introducing it, I'm like, this big dude with his story about a woman like me, like, I just wasn't having it. But he got maybe 2 or 3 sentences in, and I was like, oh yes. The humor in that piece, the sincerity, and just the way that he handled this topic of resistance to change was just so excellently done. And then I got to know him and found that he's just also a totally awesome guy. So
Perfect at every turn.
right.
So what did you want me to do then? Originally we were going to, I'll do whatever. You want to do that, it's the Dandelion Diary
Oh,
is the name of that song.
yeah, it's a dandelion, I think that's right.
Right, that's what you're talking about. And I also have the very first thing I ever wrote here was that it's a ballad of a bear and a dog duking it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to read that.
Yeah.
And then I also have the first chapter of a very new story. And I was going to do 2 of these 3.
Yeah.
So if you want me to do the Dandelion Diary, if you already talked about it?
I think you should stick with what your plan was.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, my plan was to do whatever you guys said.
Whatever feels right.
Yeah.
What's the
I
new
think doing
book?
something new.
Yeah.
Something old is absolutely good.
What's the new book you're
I
writing?
could always read, I'll come back next month and read the
There you
Dandelion
go.
Diary.
Perfect.
There you go. That's
Or if
good.
there's time
That's a
for
good
this.
promise. That's a good promise.
Okay, okay. Well, I was at an event a few weekends ago, and put on by Art Spark, a lovely organization, a great organization. And the conversation came up with one of the instructors. Somehow the word dolphin and moon both got said in the same sentence or next to each other or something. So I yelled out, like I always do. I blurted out and said, hey, there's a good story right there. You know, a dolphin obsessed with the moon, you know. And he goes, write it. You know, so I figured I would. I wrote a cute little story, it turns out, about a dolphin and a moon. And I don't have time for the whole story today, but I could tease you with the first chapter. Now my stories, I rewrite my stories a ton. And in all honesty, I've only rewritten this one a few times. So it will be better than this, but it's still presentable today, so I will do my best. The name of the book, obviously, is called Dolphin Moon, and the first chapter is called Dolph Ruddergrin. Dolph had never seen such a thing. He was a 1-year-old dolphin and had seen just about everything the ocean could throw at him in that amount of time, but never this. Granted, the moon is not part of the ocean, but tonight it seemed as if it was. It was unusually large. Halfway above the horizon, the moon seemed to be resting on the water. It was so large as to extend nearly the entire length of the horizon. Dolph had broken the surface of the water for a breath of air, and instead of continuing with his pod, he stopped and stared at the moon. He'd never seen anything so large. In fact, he didn't even recognize it as the moon. Oh sure, he'd seen the moon and the stars many times, but always the more common, smaller version. This object before him had turned the water white, yet the light did not penetrate the surface. The whole experience took him by surprise. His friend, Bottlebutt, noticed that Dolph had stopped swimming with the rest of the pod and returned to him. In normal dolphin fashion, he talks to Dolph. To do this, a dolphin literally draws a picture in the mind of the dolphin he is addressing. Using the same sonar that allows a dolphin to see the surrounding landscape and to pinpoint the location of its prey, it can instead be directed at another dolphin and used to create a picture in that dolphin's mind. The message can be unique, or it can be one of a standard format used to pass on routine concepts like danger, food, etc. It is impossible to translate these images directly into human words and concepts. But when Bottlebutt questions Dolph about why he stopped, the translation might sound like this to us. There's an area ahead where the fish are many, and an area behind where the fish aren't any. Here we are in the middle, and the fish are but very little. The rest of the pod is swimming that way, and I was wondering why it's here that you stay. The competing pictures in Dolph's mind of the wide moon and Bottlebutt's question pulled Dolph out of his daze and left him also wondering what he was doing. After a moment or two, Dolph responded by drawing his own picture, only this time in Bottlebutt's mind, like this. Something large is in the sky, wondrous and white and worthy of my eye. So large upon the ocean, yet it does not sink. So loud upon my mind that I cannot think. With a quick repetition of head movements, Bottlebutt signaled that he saw it too. The moon was unusual tonight, but Bottlebutt was a few years older than Dolph, and he had seen the moon like this before. Although like Dolph, he did not realize that this large moon was the same moon that is normally high in the night sky. A quick word about dolphin names. A pod of dolphins can be made up of only a handful of families, and each has its own family name. The name always pertains to dolphins somehow. Ruddergrin is simply rudder and grin combined. If drawn in the mind in true dolphin fashion, Ruddergrin would sound like this. Rudder is what we call our fins, smiles are known to us as grins. Dolph was given a first name to go with the family name, Ruddergrin, shortly after he was born. His father was swimming near a boat, and as he surfaced for a second to get some air, he heard a human on the boat yell in his direction. The sound he heard was actually a partial sound, Dolph. Then his father was back underwater and continued on his way. But he remembered the sound. As for Bottlebutt, Butt is not only a family name, it is how dolphins fight. They build up a lot of speed in the water, and using their bottle-shaped noses, they butt hard into a target. Bottlebutt was a big dolphin with a stout bottle-shaped nose, and just like the rest of his family, he was a fierce fighter and very good at butting. The two moon gazers floated on the surface and stared at it for a bit longer. Time had lost all meaning for Dolph, however, Bottlebutt was growing impatient. He knew the bod was still swimming away from them. He left Dolph to stare at the large white orb and dove down a good 50 feet to cooler water where he could listen for the rest of the pod. The surface of the ocean is a very noisy place. Unless the ocean is smooth as glass, the wind and the waves alone make a terrific commotion. Sound gets scattered under those conditions and does not travel far. In contrast, the cooler ocean currents below the surface area can actually trap sound and carry those noises for miles, much further than anyone would suppose, and Bottlebutt knew the best depth to listen for the pod. Once there, however, he did not like what he heard. The pod was excited and it was in a mode of distress. The particular sounds were easy to interpret. A baby could do it. It was their nemesis, a killer whale. Gnash and mash and sharp teeth slash, white and black and fast attack. Bottlebutt heard the picture and instantly knew the pod needed him, but he also understood that even the mightiest dolphin was no match for a killer whale. His thoughts returned to Dolph Ruddergrin. The killer whale would prefer to target a 1-year-old dolphin. The killer whale would prefer to target a 1-year-old dolphin, and he realized that he must protect Dolph. Luckily, the whale was currently unaware of these two stragglers, and their best chance at survival was to keep it that way. If they could take advantage of the noisy water, they could stay near the surface while they attempted an escape. But when Bottlebutt returned to the surface, Dolph was nowhere to be seen. He kept calm, and he also kept his head above water, hoping to see him nearby. He watched for a long while, longer than a dolphin can hold its breath, but no Dolph. Then he swam a little deeper, not completely away from the surface, but deep enough to quiet the water a bit. Still, there was nothing that sounded like Dolph. It occurred to Bottlebutt that if he returned to the deeper water, he might be able to hear Dolph there. He wasted no time. Swimming deeper, he entered the cooler, quieter water. His heart was pounding. He was anticipating the violent sounds of the pod being attacked again. At the same time, he was straining to hear any sound at all from Dolph from the opposite direction. Luckily, the sounds from the pod had vanished. Most likely, the attack took everyone out of the temperature gradient that Bottlebutt was in, and he could no longer hear the attack. The few sounds that he could hear from the direction of the pod had calmed down and seemed to be the type of sounds that follow a battle, which eased his mind slightly. He could barely make out someone calling for Shallow Ruttergren, one of Dolph's cousins, and he had hoped that she was all right. But any relief he might have hoped for, disappeared at the sudden realization that he could no longer locate the killer whale. Then he heard Shallow's voice. It was a simple mind picture and described her location. "I'm over here." Bottlebutt allowed himself to feel a little more at ease. Then he heard more voices from the pod. It sounded like the pod was lucky and that no one was injured, or worse. Then, from the opposite direction, he finally heard something familiar. "Wondrous!" It was Dolph, unaware of the killer whale and still describing the moon out loud. Then he heard, "Worthy of my eye." Bottlebutt wasted no time and started swimming towards Dolph, just moments ahead of the killer whale that was silently stalking the young, noisy dolphin. So I was very excited when I wrote that chapter. I go, wow, that turned out pretty cool. And that's when I volunteered to read it. And then a few weeks later, I finished it. And so I said, well, let me read the whole story now. But it's too long. I'm sorry, it's too long. But it goes on. It goes on to the next chapter. The Dolphin Moon is actually the name of a boat. And there's a lady marine biologist who just happens to be having some trouble of her own out at sea. And then there's another chapter with some poachers. And then there's a boy gets involved who's the same age as the girl on the boat. And it turns into a pretty cool little story.
And then it all comes together.
And it all comes together at the end. So I'm very excited about that story. One day it will be in my book. I'm writing a book of short stories. And one day it will be in my book. And I will save the Dandelion Diary for all those who want to hear it. They'll have to come back next month. So I will finish then by reading my poem called The Beautiful Day. It's more of a ballad than a poem. It's the very first thing I ever wrote for these groups, which must be coming up on a couple of years ago. I don't know. I've been here for a while now, I guess.
We're in our 5th year, I think.
I haven't been here for all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been a couple of years. I missed the last few months. You guys are all too far away. This is a 3-hour round trip for me to come here. So I used to come every month, especially when my wife was doing her chemo treatments and everything. And she's fine now after cancer. Right? She had some issues because she lost her thyroid in the process, and trying to get the medicines right to compensate for the thyroid can be an issue. But everything else is going good. So anyway, people have always liked this. This has always been one of my favorite writings, so I thought today I would read it again for a second time. Holy cow, I should have printed that a little bit bigger. Let me get my, call these the Hubble. That's a little bit better. Okay, The Beautiful Day. It appeared that the day would lack the ingredients for sorrow, misfortune, and tragic events. Just sunshine and laughter on a soft summer breeze, with nary a tear as far as the eye can see. There were burgers, bratwurst, and steaks on a grill, softball games, contests, and everyone's fill. A general din occurred from this noise, expressing joy from the parents, girls, and boys. With all of this fun and the festivities, why should anyone notice the rustling of leaves? Why would anyone pick this day to care about nature or hunger or a desperate bear? But this wonderful park was once a large wood. Bears used to hunt where tall trees once stood, until man and his kind made gone all the trees, gone berries, gone grubs, gone nectar of bees. But one bear remembers and now has come home. Eternally hungry, he endlessly roams. Fear of these humans once drove him away, but now out of options, these humans are prey. When leaf falls from tree, as a native might tell it, eagles see it, deer hear it, and mighty bears smell it. The scent of a bear will now test this bear's skill. The scent of a human will now test this bear's skill. Born on a breeze and carried over a hill. The scent led the bear right up to the park. It moved through areas that shadows made dark. Its ability for stealth was both impressive and keen. It slipped right past the ball game without being seen. The bear then observed Mother Nature's request to seek out the weakest, the least able to resist. A little boy by himself, his parents away, unaware of the end of the beautiful day. But the breeze also carried the scent of a bear, available to any nose that might draw at the air. A black lad named Coffee drank in the bear scent, then he smelled the bear and he knew what that meant. Coffee barked out a warning while fast on his way. The human word bear is what he wanted to say. He darted past tables, dodged a lady in a chair, then ran straight upwind toward the boy and the bear. Now, if you know Coffee, you know a usual dog. He'll play all day long and then sleep like a log. He'll find you his ball all day if you wish, and always knows the shortest route to his food dish. If given commands like lie down, sit, or stay, it's a comfort to know that he loves you anyway. Yet, with no second thought, he'll stop his forage and fun to fend off this bear or whatever needs to be done. I get emotional with this one sometimes, sorry guys. The lady stood up and knocked over her chair. Interpreting for Coffee, she barked out the word bear. The others then became aware at long last, like the shock of a wave moving out from a blast. The bear ran past a man stuck in mid-scream, reliving his life, which flashed like a dream. Coffee looked to be flying over the short-bladed grass. Then the boy turned and saw them, both coming fast. But for Coffee and the child, there just wasn't enough time, for the bear started this race well over the line. Then the boy, doing the smartest thing he ever did, tripped and he fell, and he tumbled and he slid. This caused the bear's paws. It swiped through the air to graze the boy's head, getting nothing but hair. One hair for each year that the boy's been alive, with one extra hair, in hopes the boy will survive. The bear quickly regrouped and turned and he reared, standing most of 8 feet from ankles to ears. The boy screamed and then scrambled up to his knees, but when he looks up, it's not the bear that he sees. Coffee placed himself firmly right next to the child, and then he ordered the bear to return to the wild. For a brief, hopeful second, it appeared the bear might, for the two of them so poised was a spectacular sight. But the bear was too hungry to meet Coffee's demand, so he put it into terms that they could both understand. He attacked from the north with the teeth in his mouth, and then with the claws on his feet he attacked from the south. Coffee absorbed every ounce of that vicious attack, measuring out for the bear a pound or two back. The man stopped his scream and made use of this time to grab the child's hand, and he turned on a dime. While the man saves the child, Coffee distracts. Not a bad little impromptu plan of attack, but they needed more time to get to save the day. Such is the fate asked of Coffee that day. Coffee had been wounded intercepting a blow that was meant for the man with the child in tow. Coffee's leg was torn all the way to his toes. How he managed to press on, Lord only knows. The bear then took advantage of Coffee's bad leg and went after the child with a zig and a zag. He lunged through the air and tripped up the man. This caused him to fall and let go of the boy's hand. But somehow Coffee managed to get in between the bear and the man once again in the dream. The bear was close to the child and had one more chance, yet once again, Coffee blew rage. With But the child defended, and the bear veered his attack and crushed all of his weight down on the coffee's back. But suddenly, loud noises came from the crowd, drawing closer and braver and shouting out loud. The bear saw the father carrying a bat made of wood, with softball players following him as fast as they could. It was the seventh inning, and he was a runner on third when the sound of the bat hitting the ball was heard. The ball was traveling fast through the sky when the sun, the bear, and the dog caught his eye. He stepped over home plate and he picked up the bat, even as the noise from the crowd was still echoing back. On another day, the ball might have been caught in midair, but out in the outfield, there was nobody there. No chance existed to turn a sweet double play because the infielders, too, were well on their way. They all ran past the umpire, who was apparently blind, with the opposing team's catcher and stepped right behind. They charged at the bear and all made an attempt to explain to the creature that he had no consent. A bat was swung, the catcher flung his mask. There wasn't a single man there not up to the task. By the time the bear realized his attack was confounded, the whole Hall of Fame, it seemed, had him surrounded. The pitcher took some spit off the tip of his tongue and let loose with a fastball the likes of Cy Young. Babe Ruth was swinging a bat at each hand. Bobby Cox was throwing handfuls of sand. Mickey Mantle had successfully aimed a line drive at a place on the bear that needs to survive. The bear couldn't tell if a fight would be tough or if half of the threat was 80% bluff. But he finally decided to turn and he ran, being scared off again by his nemesis man. The men jeered and jabbed and let it known that not all of the cards in their bluff had been shown. The bear effected his retreat amidst this torrent of shouts. Then the umpire arrived and declared the bear out. The child and the man were now both in a dream. They were safely surrounded by two softball teams. Everything was still, not a bird in the sky. Movement came slowly. The boy's mother cried. As the tally was counted, just one figure stood out. Coffee lay motionless as folks gathered about. It seems that great deeds weigh heavy when added to a soul, and our world is now lighter by 1,000 or so. A statue and likeness will be erected right there to the spot dedicated to the dog that yelled bear. Chivalry died on earth when the king's last night fell. Courage must now too only exist in heaven or hell. And that's how it became possible, one beautiful day, a month after coffee and courage passed away, that a 10-year-old boy with 11 less hairs got a 12-week-old puppy with the heart of a bear. He's cute and he's curious, and his favorite command is, "Come over here, Max, and eat from my hand." And he'll chew up anything, be it bone, boot, or blouse, this son of a hero named Maxwell House.